Hello everyone, this is Dr. Hari Baksyado, Assistant Professor, Department of Horticulture from Tilakdhari PG College, Jaunpur, Uttar Pradesh. The topic of today's discussion is cultivation and management of a very special flower crops, which is orchids. Orchids, which is a very fascinating perennial flowers, belong to the family Orchidaceae, which is considered as largest family among flowering plants, having about 800 genera and about 35,000 species. We have to discuss about the important genera. Uh, those are in cultivation and has much economic importance in our study point of view. Orchids is considered have been originated in different parts of the world, including Indo-Malaya region and tropical America like Brazil, Mexico, and other warmer parts of the world. Some of the orchids have their origin in Indian subcontinent as well. The image which is before you, in front of you, is the image belonging to the important genera which is Dendrobium. And now the image which is before you is Vanilla planifolia. The right image is a flower of Vanilla planifolia, and left one is this its fruit, which is bean, technically, which is botanically called as bean. You might be wondering that this bean is the main source of vanilla essence, which we have been using for uh, flavoring various confectionery items, ice creams, etc. in our day-to-day life. See the beauty and variety of the different genera of the orchids like Arachnis, the left side image, and Catilia, right side image. In continuation of the beauty and this variety, this image which is just before you is about Rancostylis gigantea, which is also called as foxtail orchid. Moving ahead, these two images are belonging to the genus Cymbidium and Bulbophyllum. Like many other genus, these two images are from genus Vanda. This is another orchid which is considered, which is noted as tallest orchid in the world, and it is botanically called as Grammatophyllum speciosum. It is also called as giant orchid or tiger orchid or sometimes sugarcane orchids. It grows more than 7.5 meter uh, height in height. You may see this picture, which is very fascinating in its color. And in the structure, I forget to mention the name of the genus while collecting these images from the website. I mentioned earlier, the orchid belong to the family Orchidaceae, which is largest family among flowering plants. The term orchid is derived from a Greek word orchis, meaning testicles, referring to the paired underground tubers of terrestrial orchids. Orchids are perennial, terrestrial, epiphytic, saprophytic, and intermediate in nature. They are the most beautiful flower and have surpassed the cut flower industry all over the world. Now come to the classification of the orchids. Orchids may be classified on the basis of their growth habit, habitats, and temperature preferences. Now come to the first part, first basis of its classification, which is classification based on its growth habits. On the basis of its growth habits, orchids are classified as monopodial and sympodial. Monopodial orchids have single non-branching stem growing upward year after year. The plants belonging to this group absorb nutrient and moisture from the air. Leaves, roots, and inflorescence are produced from the nodes along the entire length of the stem. They have vertical growth habit. Important genera under monopodial orchids are Benda, Arachnis, etc. Now, sympodial orchids. Sympodial orchids have an underground horizontal growth habit and have new growth developed from its rhizome. The genera belonging to this group have thickened stem called pseudostem. Important genera of this uh, subgroup, this sympodial orchids are Catilia, Cymbidium, and Dendrobium. This image before you is showing the differences among sympodial and monopodial orchids. As I told you earlier, the sympodial orchids have underground ground growth, which is known as rhizome, and from rhizome, a vertical growth takes place in the form of pseudobulb. And from this pseudobulb, leaf and inflorescence occurs. In monopodials, the growth takes place uh, vertically and there is no rhizome formation underground. The roots and leaves emerge from its stalk. And the flower stalk also emerges from the leaf axis. The pseudobulbs, the older pseudobulbs, which have less physiological activities, are inactive pseudobulbs, are known as bag bulbs. Now this picture, colored picture at right hand side showing a form of its growth, not just growth, it's division. You can say it's a division, which is known as keki. Keki is a Hawaiian word which means a baby. A sympodial orchids, uh, a stem of sympodial orchids, not sympodial orchids, it's monopodial orchids, uh, producing a baby plant which is known as keki. Now, the second basis of classification, which is classification on the basis of habitat. Habitat means uh, their living is place, their living place. On the basis of habitat, these orchids are classified into four types, like terrestrial, epiphytes, and lithophytes, and the last one is saprophyte. As per nomenclature, the epiphytes grows on the soil, on the territory of the land, and epiphytes in the air. They are also known as uh, air plant. Epiphytes grows mostly on the trunk or on the scaffold branches of the trees, which have dead shoots, dead barks, and these orchids extend their roots in the crevices and the cracks of the barks and start growing. They also derives their nutritional requirement and moisture from the air. Nutrition, uh, they also derive their nutrition from the first rain and bird droppings as well. Lithophytes generally uh, grows and develops their ontogeny, their life cycles in the stone or in the rocks. In the crevices of the rocks, they extend their roots for their support. They also derive their requirement for the moisture and nutrient from the air. One thing I missed to tell you all that orchids are very special kind of plants. They prefer more air in their root zone for their growth and development. Now, the fourth type, which is uh, uh, shown in the right hand corner, is saprophytes. Saprophytes are generally devoid of chlorophyll and they grow and develop on dead and decayed organic matter. The important genera among these four types are given here as in terrestrial. The important genera are Symbedium, Paphiopedalium, Pius, Liparis, etc. And in epiphytes, that is air plants, the important genera are Dendrobium, Catleya, Braccia, Epidendrum, Miltonia, Oncidium, etc. Under lithophytes, the important genera are Symbedium, Diplomeris, Hirsuta, Geodorum, Luperanium, and many other genera as well. In saprophytes, the important genera are Neotha and EPPOGM. These are the types classified on the basis of their habitat. Now come to the classification made on the basis of their temperature preferences. Some orchids prefers warmer climate. They are classified as tropical orchids. Some prefers mild climate, mild temperature. They are classified as subtropical or intermediate types. And some prefers cool climate. They are classified or they are known as temperate orchids. If we go for the study of the varieties, it may be worth to mention here that as I told you in the very beginning that it is the very uh, largest family, means this Orchidaceae is largest family among flowering plants and having a good number of genera, that is about 800 and about 35,000 species. If we go details in varieties, it will be the mammoth information and which will be very difficult to memorize all the varieties and species and even genera which are of commercial importance. Taking these all into consideration, very few varieties under important genera have been mentioned here, like in Arachnis, Maggie Oi, Catherine, under Catilia, it is Bobbells, Bobels, Impress Bells, Stell, Margaret Stewart, and White Christmas. In Dendrobium, uh, Pompadour, Viper, Sonia 17 and Sonia 28. In Cembadium, varieties are Dingwall Lewis, Queen of Picardy, BX Rose, etc. Now come to the climatic requirement. As it has been outlined earlier, that orchids are of varied kind, have varied origin, and therefore they also prefer varied climatic requirement. You cannot recommend a single climatic condition for the cultivation or growth and development of the orchids entirety in entirety. But if we see in a larger sense, in a wider sense, most of the cultivated orchids thrive in a day temperature varying from 15 to 21 degrees Celsius in day and 10 to 15 degrees Celsius in night. Monopodials generally requires higher humidity as compared to the sympodials. If we talk about the soil or media, it is worth to mention here that only terrestrial orchids can be cultivated on land. Therefore, we have to design, we have to recommend, we have to evaluate the requirement of uh, appropriate media for the terrestrial orchids only. But if we consider media or soil media for the epiphytes, we can do something for epiphytes as well. Say, for example, we can support the root zone of the epiphytes with the help of moss grass, uh, Ohio WP treated moss grass or fir or osmunda fiber, and tied them on the trunk of the trees, on the branches of trees, so that when they grow, when they produce their inflorescence, flowers, they did not, uh, they do not break or fall on the ground. Considering all these, the media for terrestrial orchids, porous and rich humus added with decayed leaves is the ideal media for terrestrial orchids found in the forest. A potting medium containing equal parts of leaf mold, soil, and sand should be used. But as far as epiphytic orchids are concerned, we have to manage their media in a very specific way so as to provide the conducive rhizosphere for their growth and development. In common components, as in the form of medium, the tree fern fiber, osmunda fiber, bark, coconut husk, tiles, bricks, and charcoals, gravels are used uh, as the medium to be tied in the rhizosphere of the epiphytes. Now come to the propagation, which is very important aspect of multiplicating orchids. Orchids can be multiplied sexually as well as by asexual means for their mm, multiplication. Monopodial orchids can be multiplied by using their stem cuttings, flower stalk cuttings, and layering as well. But for the propagation of sympodial orchids, we have to divide the pseudobulbs for the culturing of the, for the multiplicating of the sympodial orchids. We can also go for this multiplication of the sympodial orchids by using cakeys, that is babies, which I have showed you the picture of the babies cakeys showed you in the very beginning of this lecture. This sympodials can also be multiplied by using bag bulbs, which are old pseudo bulbs having less physiological activity. Now we can also go for the multiplication of the orchid by using tissue culture techniques. Here it is also worth to mention that the seeds of the orchids are non-endospermic in nature and they fails to germinate. Initially, it was uh, discovered that orchid seeds can only be germinate if there is an association of mycorrhizal fungi with the roots. But later on, with the advancement of the science, Knudsen, who is Lewis Knudsen in 1966, made a research and found that the fungus is not required for the germination of orchid seeds. He clearly indicated that due to the lack of endosperm, that is food material of any seed, the seed fails to germinate. And he provides a medium for the germination of the orchid seeds. And that medium is known as Knudsen seed medium. Before moving ahead, it is worth to mention here that orchid fruit is known as capsule, which have very small size of seeds, number varying from 1 lakh to 60 lakhs, about 60 lakh in a capsule. So you can imagine the size of the seed of orchids. But the average seed content of the orchid in a capsule is 5 lakh to 6 lakh. Apart from the seed culture, we can also go for the other tissue culture types like meristem culture, floral part culture, uh, tissues from shoots, aerial parts, etc. As far as manures and fertilizer are concerned, the terrestrial orchid receives its nourishment from decaying leaves and other vegetative matters. Epiphytic orchids, on the other hand, receive nutrient from the first rain and from the bird droppings as well. Pots are filled with the mixture of leaf mold, FOM, and sand in the ratio of 1:1:1. For the healthy growth and development, we have to apply the micronutrients as well. There is there is a formulation named as OEOWP, which is ready-made formulation for the uh, fertilization of the orchid. We can go for the apply of OEOWP in the orchid cultivation. Orchids are planted, not all orchids, the territorial orchids are planted at a spacing of 30 centimeter apart. Now come to the irrigation and other cultural practices. All the genera of orchids do not respond equally to the moisture levels. Monopodials in general prefer high humidity as compared to sympodial ones. Even among monopodial ones, those who prefer shade for their growth and development require less water. Maintenance of adequate humidity in the atmosphere and moisture at a root level is the most important aspect of orchid cultivation. Plants are mainly lost not because of the inadequacy of the moisture level, but because of the overdose of moisture, that is over application of the irrigation water. Some cultural practices are there like planting or repotting. When the plants has filled up the pots or their rhizosphere with lot of roots or rhizomes, they need to be replanted or repotted. The repotted plants may be kept under shade for a few days to few hours so that plants return to their normal growth. Many of the orchids do not require immediate irrigation after repotting or replanting. Regulation of shade is one of the important aspects in orchid cultivation. The maximum spike production can be taken in double level shading. We can obtain 25% more production by providing double layer shading, that is double layer shade net. Insect pests are the important aspect of consideration while discussing the cultivation of orchids. As usual, as in many other crops, orchids are prone to many insect pests and diseases. Based on the type of damage, the type of pest or diseases, and their nature of damage, we have to go for their control accordingly. Now, harvesting is an important aspect as it is cut flower, and some of the orchids are harvested along with the stem when they have their flowers fully open. On the other hand, few orchids are harvested when they have 30 to 40% flowers open. After harvesting, the flowers are kept in the sucrose solution, 5 to 6% solution, along with hydroquinone citrate solution, 500 ppm, or benzyl adenine 75 ppm for about 5 to 6 hours, just for the sake of the enhancement of their shelf life. Now come to the final portion, final phase of the cultivation, that is yield. Yield varies according to the type of the orchid, that is its genus, other management practices, insect pest, and many other soil and agroclimatic conditions prevailing during the cultivation during the cultivation time. So it is all about the cultivation of orchids and its management. There is one research center of national importance working under the aegis of ICAR, and this center, which is known as National Research Center for Orchid, is situated in Pekong, Sikkim. This center was established on 5th of the October 1966. Thank you.